A Millionaire's shocking 3-minute request reveals a touching transformation to escape a wedding. Nathaniel Chase stared at the screen with a mixture of disbelief and confusion, heart pounding, as Mia Diaz's desperate eyes flickered to life in front of him. Her earnest plea came not just from a waitress, but from a woman steeped in the legacy of the Maple Leaf Diner, his childhood haven. This small piece of his past had become her family's lifeline, now teetering on the brink of foreclosure. A million memories rushed back, each one a testament to how far he had come. A humble home, his mother's exhausted smile after each grueling shift, his father's defeated sighs after each failed venture. Had success truly cultivated this monument of solitude around him, overshadowing his heart's desire to connect? As he listened, the weight of Mia's words sank into the fabric of his dignity. "We can't let it go, Nathaniel," she exclaimed, her voice trembling with emotion. It wasn't just about the diner, it was about family, hope, and survival. Flashes of his own chaotic home life swirled in his mind. Bills stacked high, disappointment roaring louder than the dreams he dared to chase. Hidden behind walls of affluence, Nathaniel was losing sight of who he once was. The urgency of her plea invited a specter of guilt. Who was he to ignore it? Yet, a strange impulse breathed life into a wild suggestion that was perhaps as reckless as it was liberating. "Help me save it," he found himself saying, "and I'll fund the revival if you agree to marry me." The words burst from his lips like a thunderclap, shocking even himself. Marriage not out of love, but a peculiar tradition that hung like a phantom over his family name. An outlandish ultimatum. Mia's stunned silence echoed around the empty space in his expansive home, a stark contrast to the spirited diner he'd envisioned in her video. An uneasy tension filled the air. As she blinked back her shock, Nate's own thoughts spiraled. Had he crossed an ethical line? Was he exploiting a desperate situation? Suddenly, his opulent life felt shrouded in layers of complicity, and he questioned the very motives guiding his actions. Relief washed over him momentarily. She might refuse. Then he'd be off the hook, no more moral quandaries. But the flicker of hope in her eyes, despite confusion, reflected something he deeply feared: connection. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the days passed and planning began, Nathaniel found himself caught in a web of rising emotions. He watched Mia transform from a mere image on a screen into a woman of resilience, driven by love for her family. Each meeting revealed more layers: her laughter, her fierce dedication, and ignited a spark of determination within him that he hadn't felt in years. Yet, shadows loomed over their unusual arrangement. Secrets brewed beneath the glossy surface of their partnership. What long-forgotten truths lay buried in their family's shared history? With the wedding day rapidly approaching, the stakes grew heavy. Nathaniel unearthed connections that rattled him to his core, each truth a piece of his fragmented past, while Mia grappled with the revelation of Nathaniel's sacrifices. Their imminent union became a crucible, ready to ignite buried pain and deep-held regrets. As they stood before the guests, the air thick with expectation, Nathaniel sensed the tension in Mia. Their shared glances revealed a complexity of emotions both were loath to acknowledge. Did tradition still have power over her dreams? A heart-wrenching question hung in the air, begging for release. Would they choose marriage or dare to unravel the tight grip of their respective legacies? The officiant's voice blurred into a murmur, and the stakes fizzled into an uncertain abyss, each heartbeat echoing the fear of what lay ahead, each second a harsh reminder that love could be the very thing that chained them down. Nathaniel stood frozen, a storm of conflicting emotions raging within him. The chapel was adorned with flowers that seemed to suffocate him under the weight of this peculiar expectation. Short breaths came in quick succession as he glanced at Mia. She was radiant but fraught with tension, caught between the intimacy of their arrangement and the looming uncertainty of her family's future. Each second that passed felt like an eternity of questions without answers. Did they have a future beyond this charade? Had he taken on too much by trying to pull them both from the brink? The light flickered in the stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns on the floor, just as the past loomed over their present. It whispered reminders of the life he had forged and how it disconnected him from the very essence of his upbringing. In a moment of clarity, Nathaniel confronted the truth. This marriage, although perhaps transactional, could also be a bridge back to understanding himself and what mattered, the human connections he had shelved for the sake of success. As the officiant droned on, Nathaniel assessed the gravity of his next move. It wasn't just about the wedding. This was a pivotal juncture. His mind raced through possibilities, reflecting the themes of struggle and resilience that Mia embodied. What if they could channel her passion into something greater? Could this union not only save the diner, but also revive a part of himself he didn't know he had lost? Stop! The thought blared through his mind like a warning siren. The officiant had paused, waiting for their response. Nathaniel's heart thudded. He needed to act. "I can't do this," he blurted out, the words crumbling the illusion they had built together. The instant realization of what he just said settled over him like ice. A cascade of hushed gasps erupted among the guests, mingling with the collective shock of Mia's narrowed gaze. It was not just what he had rejected, but what he had revealed about himself. He was not ready to tread the path of tradition shackled by obligation. Mia inhaled sharply. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice a delicate blend of hurt and confusion. "I mean, marriage as an escape cannot be a basis for our future. This isn't only about saving the diner. It's about understanding who we are, together and apart." He felt the weight of vulnerability press against him. It was a truth he had dodged, one he was ashamed to face. But there was something liberating about acknowledging it in front of so many. This was an opportunity to explore the possibility of a genuine connection rather than just fulfilling the expected roles of husband or wife. Mia's confusion began to shift into something more profound. The flicker of understanding in her eyes thawed the icy barrier between them, and for the first time, they navigated the tumultuous waters of truth together. "So what do we do now?" she asked, and there was a hint of challenge in her tone, a request for honesty in both their futures. "We figure it out," he replied, now steadied by a sense of purpose. Nathaniel felt an unfamiliar energy spark as the reality of their situation crystallized. Redemption and growth lay ahead, not just for the diner, but for both of them. They could confront the shadows of their families, tap into the deeply buried corners of their former selves, and build something lasting. As they faced one another in the crowd's penetrating gaze, something profound shifted. Nathaniel sensed an impending confrontation with his past, and he knew it was time to face the truths that had shaped him. Staring into Mia's determined eyes, he felt a surge of solidarity. This was not merely a partnership born of necessity. This was a collaborative journey, destined to be forged by their choices. But just as the warmth of revelation ignited between them, a familiar figure emerged from the back of the chapel, and Nathaniel's heart plummeted. The time had come to face the person who had haunted his childhood, a figure who had been pivotal to his family's legacy, and the one with the power to unravel everything. He was trying to rebuild. Nathaniel's breath caught in his throat as he locked eyes with the figure advancing toward the altar, Walter, his estranged father. The abrupt reappearance stirred a tumultuous mix of emotions, each one a reminder of the strained ties that had tethered him to his past. Walter's locked jaw and steady stride bespoke authority, a chilling reminder of the confidence he wielded like a weapon. The chapel's atmosphere shifted, the colorful patterns of light from the stained glass now dull against Nathaniel's sudden dread. This was not merely an awkward family reunion. It was an incursion, a potential unraveling of the resolve he had just mustered. What would Walter say? What expectations would he drape over Nathaniel's shoulders this time? As Walter reached the couple, whispers rippled through the crowd, but Nathaniel was focused solely on his father's piercing gaze. "You really shouldn't have done that, Nathaniel," Walter began, his voice smooth, tinged with an unyielding authority. "You're making a mockery of what can be a beneficial alliance." "I'm not looking for an alliance, Dad," Nathaniel fired back, surprising himself with the firmness in his tone. "Mia and I need to find our own way, not just follow a blueprint you set out for us. This has to be about us, not what you want. Is it wise to reject the advantages at hand? Walter's brow furrowed, challenge sparking in his eyes. Think of the diner. Think of your future. You're a fool if you turn your back on the resources I can provide. Walter had always operated under the belief that success was predicated on sacrifice, and Nathaniel squeezed his eyes shut for a fleeting moment, pushing back against the tidal wave of old beliefs. Resentment brewed within him, the years of silence and fractured connections forcing him to confront the unrelenting pressures that had haunted his adolescence. Mia isn't a business deal, Nathaniel replied, feeling urgency fuel his words. They were building something real, something that required authenticity. He felt Mia's presence beside him, her fingers brushing against his as if to anchor him. We don't want your help, Mr. Morelli, she interjected, her voice steadier than she'd ever mustered. Everything we've discussed is built on trust, not on a financial transaction. The conviction in her tone bolstered Nathaniel's resolve, reminding him that they were fighting this battle together. Walter's expression hardened, and within his stance, Nathaniel perceived a flicker of something he hadn't felt in years, doubt. Perhaps for the first time, his father was witnessing that Nathaniel was not just a reflection of his legacy, but a man forging his own path. The audacity to resist control rippled between them, each refusal a declaration of independence. We'll find our way without you, Nathaniel asserted, the weight of his decision settling comfortably over him. It's not just about saving a diner. It's about reclaiming who I am. I'll work day and night if that's what it takes, but I want something real. As he spoke, a current of revelation coursed through him. This moment was not merely about rejecting his father's plans. It was about embracing his own identity, independent from familial expectations that threatened to drown him. The shift in the room's tension was palpable. Walter's power, which had seemed so insurmountable, appeared to waver, his posture momentarily slackening. The confrontation was both terrifying and liberating. Nathaniel was taking ownership of his narrative. But, just as the atmosphere began to shift, Nathaniel caught sight of the unease creeping into Mia's expression. He realized they were still standing on the precipice of uncertainty. They were not yet free. Walter wouldn't relinquish so easily. As Nathaniel locked eyes with Mia once more, a shared understanding passed between them. They had chosen authenticity over convenience, and that was a powerful step forward. But Walter's response, filled with a simmering rage and defiance, lingered in the air. Very well, Nathaniel, he finally said, his tone chilling. If it's your desire to pursue this reckless journey, then so be it. Just know that you could have had everything. Nathaniel felt a mixture of fear and anticipation surge through him as he heard what his father had said. Was this truly the end of their contention, or simply the beginning of a tumultuous battle for his identity? The weight of Walter's words rested over him, and thick uncertainty swallowed the moment whole. As he and Mia turned to face each other amid the brewing storm of tension, they both knew the fight was far from over. They had opened a door to their truth, but the path ahead was fraught with challenges. Suddenly, Nathaniel felt the urgency of the future press behind him like a gathering storm. What would happen next? Would he stand strong against his father's looming shadow, or would the legacy he sought to reject overwhelm him once more? He had taken his first steps toward self-assertion, but the deeper confrontation lay ahead, and Nathaniel had yet to discover how fierce he could truly be. The air crackled with tension as Walter stepped back, allowing the weight of his words to settle heavily between them. Nathaniel's heart raced, a mix of exhilaration and anxiety coursing through him. What was left unsaid loomed larger than the words spoken, each silence reverberating with threats and doubts. Mia squeezed his hand tighter, grounding him amid the chaos. With Walter's retreat, the confrontation also raised a new set of questions. How to carve a path forward while still entangled in the legacy of someone he had spent years trying to escape. Are you okay? Mia's expression reflected genuine concern, and it turned Nathaniel inward. He was rattled, yes, but beneath the tremors of fear lay a burgeoning resolve. Yeah, I think so, he replied, though uncertainty laced his voice. What did okay even mean in this moment of turmoil? They stepped away from the altar, the resounding echoes of Walter's ultimatum trailing behind them like a fog. Conversations resumed around them, But Nathaniel's world narrowed to the immediate task, having a real conversation about their future. Mia led him outside into the cool evening air, the dim light casting long shadows on the ground. "You really stood up to him," she said softly, a faint smile breaking through her earlier anxiety. "That was incredible." "Did it feel incredible?" he asked, searching for clarity in her expression. "It did," she admitted. "But it also felt terrifying. We're not just fighting against him. We're fighting for a different life." Her words resonated deeply. This was about more than their dreams. It embodied a testament to their resolve against everything they had each endured. "I know I can't let him dictate who I am, but the thought of failing it terrifies me too." Mia nodded, her gaze unwavering. "We're in this together. We have to define success on our own terms." Encouraged by her steadfastness, Nathaniel began to plot their next moves in his mind. The diner was a labor of love. It symbolized their dreams of a place built on authenticity, a sanctuary away from Walter's expectations. They needed to meet with the vendors who had given them hope, the friends who had shared their visions. They had to rebuild trust not just with others, but within themselves, too. Instead of spiraling into self-doubt, Nathaniel could feel something ignite within him, a fragile flame of determination. He recognized a pool of skills he hadn't tapped into before: creativity, resilience, and tenacity he had nurtured over years of living under the weight of others' expectations. "Let us have the vendors meeting this week," Nathaniel proposed, his voice steadying with each conviction-filled word. "If we can show them what we're truly about, we might rekindle their interest in the diner." Mia's eyes lit up with agreement. "And we need to create a vision board," she suggested. "Something to remind us why we're doing this. We can fill it with our ideas, plans, everything that is authentically ours." Nathaniel nodded excitedly, picturing the board filled with sketches, ideas, and goals. This was their chance to redefine their narrative. He could sense an urgency propelling him towards something vital, something that felt right. Yet as they walked back, a shadow loomed at the edge of Nathaniel's mind. Walter would not let go easily, and his father's resentment had likely ignited a fierce desire to reclaim control. "We can't underestimate him," Nathaniel said, breaking the comfortable silence. "I know that rejection doesn't sit well with him. He'll retaliate." Mia turned to him with understanding. "Then we stay ahead of him. We build our own path before he has the chance to stake his claim." As they made plans, something within Nathaniel shifted once more. This wasn't merely about defiance. It was about becoming the architect of his own life. Each decision, each action served as bricks in the foundation of the life they envisioned for themselves, a life that would not be built on the shifting sands of his father's demands, but rather on the solid ground of their mutual aspirations. Yet deep within, an unsettling truth whispered. Walter's influence permeated everything. The game he played was far from over, and Nathaniel felt the pressure mounting like a crescendo, a storm brewing just beyond the horizon. Just as certainty began to settle beside resolve, Nathaniel spotted a familiar figure in the distance. Walter was not stepping back, but lurking. The confrontation would escalate. Reality was setting in, and Nathaniel knew this. "I'm not ready for what's about to come." With a pulse of dread, Nathaniel steeled himself. The face-off was unavoidable, and he couldn't turn back now. Next steps awaited, but at what cost? The week unfolded like an intricate tapestry, threads of uncertainty and anticipation interwoven. The meeting with the vendors loomed large in Nathaniel's mind, an opportunity to assert their vision and reclaim agency over their future. Each day encapsulated a motley of encouragement and self-doubt, leading to a pivotal interaction that would define their momentum. Nathaniel immersed himself in preparations. He holed up with Mia, surrounded by sketchbooks and color swatches, markers dancing across the page as they created their vision board. Ideas flowed between them, the energy electric. What had once been tentative discussions now morphed into decisive strokes of optimism. Every image pinned to the board spoke of their shared dreams: a retro diner, serving comfort food with a twist, performances by local artists, a space that radiated community spirit, yet remained distinctly theirs. "Look at how vibrant this is," Mia exclaimed, placing their sketches side by side. "It represents a new beginning. We need the vendors to see this, to feel this." Nathaniel nodded, absorbing her enthusiasm. He drew strength from her conviction, realizing that they were dismantling the fears wrought by Walter piece by piece. Yet, a shadow flickered in the back of Nathaniel's thoughts, unbidden and ominous. Walter's intentions felt like a thick fog, blurring the clarity of their vision with confusing dread. As the meeting day approached, Nathaniel knew they needed to present their concept clearly and confidently. The vendors were not only business partners, they were gatekeepers to their dream. Crafting a narrative they could believe in was critical, a task that required every ounce of Nathaniel's evolving skills. He began to visualize how their story connected to the diner, weaving their personal journeys into the fabric of the business. The night before the meeting, Nathaniel could hardly contain his anxiety. He stood in front of the mirror, repeating affirmations to drown out the anxiety curling within him like tendrils of smoke. You've got this. You are enough. This is your story. He fought against the creeping feelings of inadequacy that whispered in the corners of his mind, reminiscent of moments spent in his father's shadow. Mia approached while he rehearsed, the light from the lamp casting a halo around her. You're not just facing a meeting tomorrow. You're claiming your voice. The firmness in her words anchored him. For the first time, Nathaniel realized this wasn't merely about proving something to Walter. It was about honoring his own path. The morning dawned, crisp and bright, beneath a sky washed with promise. They stood in front of the gathering of vendors, hearts pounding in synchrony. The presentation flowed naturally, ideas spilling forth with clarity as they highlighted the diner's ethos. Nathaniel's passion surprised him, igniting a fire in his belly. He articulated the essence of their journey, entwining their dreams with the legacy they aimed to overturn. Yet just as he felt a surge of hope, a familiar voice broke through the buoyancy of the moment, sending a shiver down his spine. Walter had entered the diner unannounced, his presence a dark cloud overshadowing Nathaniel's newfound momentum. I couldn't resist the show, Walter announced, sarcasm lacing his voice. How quaint that you think you can succeed without my guidance. The room fell silent, tension thick enough to cut. Nathaniel's heart raced, his mind whirling. Walter's words echoed with a peculiar familiarity, reminding him of past voices that sought to belittle and diminish. But he wasn't that boy anymore. He didn't have to yield to his father's scripted narrative. With determination swelling within him, Nathaniel stepped forward, his voice strong despite the tremors in his hands. You may think you control this, but this is our vision. They're not your vendors, they're ours. Walter's expression soured, a glint of disbelief flashing in his eyes. Nathaniel's pulse quickened. A confrontation was brewing. In that moment, Nathaniel understood that regardless of the outcome, he was no longer a pawn in Walter's game. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one sculpted by his own hands. The room crackled with energy. Nathaniel's resolve solidified. The real battle was just beginning, and he was determined not to lose himself again. But deep down, a nagging thought persisted. Would Walter's resolve match Nathaniel's? One truth awaited revelation. The future hinged on this explosive standoff. Would he be able to uphold the vision without falling back into the tangled web of his father's influence? The air in the diner felt charged, a palpable tension radiating from Nathaniel's every pore. The battle lines had been drawn, and he was acutely aware of the weight of Walter's gaze, sharp and unyielding. Every instinct screamed to retreat, to seek refuge in the shadows of doubt that had long overshadowed his existence. But as he maintained eye contact with the vendors, something unanticipated flickered into his soul, a fierce realization that he could no longer afford to be shackled by his father's cynicism. What you're building here is more than a restaurant. One of the vendors, a middle-aged woman with an eye for detail, interjected. It connects to something deeper, doesn't it? Her question pulled Nathaniel out of the whirlwind of his thoughts. He focused intently on her, and suddenly, he found himself unearthing parts of his own narrative that lay dormant for far too long. His voice steadied as he began weaving his family's legacy into their vision, a legacy that included not just Walter's harshness, but also the warmth of shared meals and laughter around the dinner table. Mia squeezed his hand, anchoring him amid the storm. He turned to her, seeing confidence mirrored back at him. Armed with that reflection, he pressed on. Yes, it does connect to something deeper. This diner represents resilience, community, our stubborn refusal to be defined by past mistakes. It's a place where people can come together, find comfort, and maybe even heal. Nathaniel surprised himself with his authenticity. The words flowed like a stream, each verbal brushstroke painting their picture with vivid colors. He could see the vendors leaning in, curiosity piqued, nodding appreciatively as he continued to speak. But Walter's presence loomed like a thundercloud, casting a pall over the burgeoning warmth of the moment. He raised a skeptical brow, arms folded like a critical judge. Touching story, but emotions won't pay the bills, Nathaniel. You need solid numbers to back up this fantasy. A chill snapped through Nathaniel as Walter's words hammered against the walls he was trying to build. The old pangs of inadequacy pressed in, threatening to unravel the confidence he had just stitched together. Yet, this time, he didn't retreat into silence. Instead, he faced Walter head-on, calling upon the strategies they had discussed. It's not just about numbers. It's about creating a sustainable experience that the community and you as vendors will want to invest in. This is my commitment. Walter's frown deepened, but Nathaniel felt a bubbling power surge within him, a realization that he was utterly unbound from Walter's expectations. He could navigate these waters without his father's control. He didn't need to drop his passion to appease Walter's cold pragmatism. The meeting continued, the dynamics shifting as Nathaniel navigated the challenges of both his vision and his father's antagonism with newfound poise. Each vendor's question felt less like a challenge and more like an opportunity to affirm their concept. The energy in the room transformed, the initial skepticism giving way to engagement. As the discussion waned, Nathaniel sensed a seismic shift within himself. The confrontation with Walter had ignited something powerful, a willingness to not only stand up for their business, but a growing realization that he could fiercely advocate for his self-worth. But amidst the budding hope, lingering questions gnawed at him. There was still a conflict that loomed large. How deeply embedded was Walter's influence likely to remain? Nathaniel's heart raced at the thought. He left the meeting feeling buoyant, the trajectory of his personal evolution carving new paths. Yet one truth hung heavily in the air. They had only begun to daunt Walter's grip. Would he stand firm when Walter inevitably struck back, seeking to undermine the fragile roots of his newfound confidence? The fight had only just begun, and Nathaniel had to wonder again what strategies he could deploy to safeguard his voice against the reality of returning doubt. Nathaniel awoke to the brisk morning light filtering through his window, illuminating the room in a soft, golden hue. It momentarily blanketed his thoughts, sparking memories of the previous day's meeting. A mix of exhilaration and anxiety thrummed beneath his skin. He was beginning to understand that the diner held more significance than he initially believed. It was not merely a project, it was a profound statement of who he longed to be. Rising from bed, Nathaniel glimpsed himself in the mirror. He scrutinized his reflection, searching for signs of the man who had stood up to Walter the day before. There was a flicker of determination in his eyes, overshadowing the remnants of self-doubt. Today, he decided, he would build on that momentum. He knew he needed a plan, a detailed strategy to further develop the diner's vision into something concrete and compelling. A few calls could solidify vendor partnerships, but more importantly, he needed to refine the essence of what they were creating. The diner was to be the heart of a community, a sanctuary. He grabbed his notebook and began to sketch out ideas. A menu infused with personal stories, events that celebrated culture and tradition, or perhaps a monthly theme that showcased local artists. Each note deepened his resolve, weaving ambition into a tapestry of possibility. As he sipped his coffee, Nathaniel began to delve deeper into his past. What about the family recipes lost to time? The stories his mother told while cooking? They could serve as anchors, threads tying together tradition and innovation, a homage to the sacrifices his parents made. He recorded each fleeting thought, each connection sparking a new sense of purpose within him. The morning passed swiftly, and soon enough, he was assembling the final details for another meeting, one that garnered even more sweat-inducing anxiety than the last. He was finally going to present their business plan to potential investors. They were not just investors, they were a lifeline, and he knew he had to bring them into the emotional fold he started crafting. It wouldn't be just about balance sheets, it would be about belonging. He paced around the room, rehearsing his pitch. This isn't just a financial investment, he muttered, seeking an internal cadence. It's an investment in a dream, an opportunity to change lives and create memories. Each iteration of his speech ignited a flicker of hope, but the shadows of Walter's critique played in his mind like a haunting tune. Emotions won't pay the bills. He grappled with the fear of stumbling again, of being hollowed out by his father's skepticism. With every rehearsal, he tested his motivations, asking himself whether he truly believed in his vision or if he was simply trying to escape Walter's shadow. That evening, as he prepared to leave for the investor meeting, a mix of impatience and anticipation bubbled within him. He pulled on his jacket, images of the diner materializing in vibrant hues, the laughter, the gathering, the joy he longed to unleash. As Nathaniel stepped outside, the cool air invigorated his resolve. He would embrace not only the business side but the heart of the venture. Every ounce of uncertainty was met with a surge of ambition as he headed down the street. The journey would undoubtedly bruise him. Walter would never be far behind, ready to critique or dismiss. But Nathaniel had made a decision. He would reshape his narrative into one of strength and definition, no longer a mere reflection of Walter's cynicism. As the venue loomed near, his thoughts turned sharp. This would be the first real test of his resolve against his father's cold pragmatism. The moment was closing in. Was he ready to fight for this identity, for this vision? Could he shake off the final vestiges of doubt, laden with the fear of Walter's doubt? Nathaniel took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of uncertainty and excitement intertwine. The moment of truth was escalating, and there would soon be no turning back. As Nathaniel approached the venue, the pulsating energy of the city enveloped him. The distant sounds of cars honking and people chatting reinforced his sense of purpose, each step unleashing waves of anticipation that quickened his heartbeat. He could visualize the boardroom, the polished table, and the serious expressions of the investors. This was uncharted territory for him, yet he felt a spark igniting within, a resolve that had lain dormant for years. He entered the building, his mind racing. He had meticulously crafted his presentation, yet worry crept around the edges. What if he faltered? What if the doubts he wrestled with paralyzed him in front of these potential backers? He inhaled deeply, channeling his anxiety into focus. The echo of his father's words lingered in the back of his mind, sharp as a knife, but this time he would wield that blade differently. Inside the conference room, Nathaniel faced a panel of investors, their gazes assessing, measuring. He anchored himself on the podium, gripping his notes tightly, reminding himself that he was no longer the boy desperate for approval. He greeted them and embarked on his pitch, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside. This diner, he began, will not only serve food. It will serve stories, community, and connection. Every dish will embody my family's heritage, bringing a taste of love and tradition to each table. This isn't a mere business. It is a dream we can awaken together. The room shifted slightly as he saw a flicker of interest. They leaned in, intrigued. Nathaniel could feel the energy beginning to flow in his direction. He pushed past the insecurity, allowing passion to fuel his words. He spoke about the importance of cultural identity, the revival of recipes from generations past, and the role of gathering as a sacred act. He finished outlining the emotional and financial potential of his venture. He paused, catching a glimpse of their expressions. They were no longer just scrutinizing him. They were considering the heartbeat of his vision. But then a voice interrupted his reverie. It was a seasoned investor whose brow furrowed, casting a shadow of skepticism. "This is sentimental," he stated bluntly. "Can you prove profitability in this emotional concept?" The room quieted, and the moment hung in the air like a fragile thread. Doubts crashed against his resolve like waves against a rocky shore. Nathaniel felt the familiar chill of insecurity creep in. Just a flicker, he thought, just a fleeting shadow. Channeling his fear into clarity, he retorted, "Profitability lies in the authenticity of our mission. Customers seek more than just a meal. They are yearning for a connection in a world that often feels disjointed. We will craft experiences they cherish, and that translates into loyalty and growth." The investor's expression shifted, a hint of contemplation sparking in his eyes. Somehow, Nathaniel's voice, laced with conviction, began to blossom a crack in the armor of skepticism. Meeting after meeting had brought him to this precipice. Could he continue to forge this path, unyielding in the face of adversity? What if he lost this opportunity? Would he retreat to the familiar safety of Walter's doubts, letting them snuff out his flame? As the minutes unfolded, Nathaniel felt weight shifting within him. The uncertainty that had threatened to drown him transformed into a glimmer of determination. But uncertainty and ambition danced perilously, forcing him to confront not only the panel, but also the specter of his father's critical voice. In that charged atmosphere, he realized he stood at a crossroads. There was no longer any escaping the fact that each decision would carve his identity into indelible lines, shaping not just the diner, but the man he was destined to become. The questions loomed larger now than the presentation. How far was he willing to go to protect this budding sense of self? What sacrifices would he face? The investor's reactions hung in the air, a mix of uncertainty and intrigue, provoking his instincts to surge forward even as his past loomed like a specter, waiting for the perfect moment to reclaim him. And then it hit him. The true test lay not just in winning their support. It was about embracing the vulnerability that came with laying his heart on the line. Would he have the courage to stand firm in his convictions, even when the most pressing doubts clawed for his attention, demanding compliance over authenticity? The answer awaited him, just beyond the curtain of confrontation. Nathaniel stood still for a moment, the weight of all the possibilities pressing against him, almost suffocating. The murmurs of the investors receded into the background, overshadowed by the roar of his inner turmoil. He mustered the courage to meet the eyes of the skeptical investor, whose furrowed brow seemed to pierce through the doubt clouding the room. "Empathy is a currency," Nathaniel replied, his voice steadier now. "This diner is more than just numbers on spreadsheets. It embodies a movement where each meal tells a story, just like each individual here carries a narrative that shapes them. If we don't honor that, we risk losing the very essence of what connects us." The investor tilted his head, perhaps reconsidering, but Nathaniel knew the battle was far from won. As he shifted to address the remaining two members of the panel, he mentally dissected their expressions, each reaction a breadcrumb leading him toward deeper understanding. Were they wrangling with an emotional connection to his venture, or were they fixated solely on market analysis? He sensed the urgency to pivot. Our target demographic isn't just families, it's everyone. Young professionals craving community, older generations yearning for nostalgia, and food enthusiasts ready to explore. He deliberately spread his hands wide, as if to gather them all in an embrace. We invite them into a space where food mingles with memory, and that's not easily quantifiable. But I assure you, it is incredibly valuable. Moments passed like days as the investors exchanged glances. The masculine resolve in the room was palpable, each nod slightly more encouraging, each crinkle of a suit jacket less mockingly dismissive. Nathaniel allowed himself to envision the afterglow of victory, a thriving diner that reflected his values, a legacy that perhaps could transform familial tension into pride. Yet beneath the shimmering light of inspiration lay the remnants of his past self, the one that had flinched at the thought of authority, the one that cowered under the weight of expectations. That Nathaniel still lingered, lurking just beneath his newfound layer of conviction, threatening to unravel all he had painstakingly constructed. "Tell me, Nathaniel," the investor with skepticism challenged, "if you're so passionate about this venture, how will you foresee challenging moments when the initial charm of emotional storytelling begins to fade on the operational side, when the novelty wears off?" The question was incisive, striking Darren like a lightning flash in a starless night. He knew it held truth. He had seen it in other ambitions dashed against the rocks of reality. "I have a plan," he offered, the words brushing against the bubbling uncertainty in his belly. "The recipes will evolve, just like the Diner's story. I will conduct monthly focus groups to keep the menu fresh and reflective of our community. There's beauty in evolution, in listening, and most importantly, in adapting." With this assertion, he reclaimed his narrative yet again. The conviction in his tone, the resolve in his posture. These were threads woven into a fabric he slowly began to understand represented resilience and tenacity. No longer was he floundering in self-doubt. He was an architect of his vision, Yet the echo of his father's voice constricted his throat, stifling what was flowing so boldly into the air. Could he silence that doubt for good? Was survival in the corporate arena exclusively tethered to tangible metrics? Or did heartfelt stories possess their own persuasive power? Just then, a third investor spoke, a woman with warm eyes and a slight smile that hinted at understanding. What if you don't just create a diner, but a network? Something that serves as a beacon for those craving connection? How will you build that bridge? Her suggestion sparked something deep within Nathaniel. That was it, a realization that transcended the business model. He envisioned hosting events, perhaps community dinners, classes, not just a place to eat, but a hub where connections flourished. Exactly, he exclaimed, tone alight with excitement. Imagine cooking classes where families share stories that accompany their heritage dishes, creating a tapestry of connection. A bridge between generations and experiences, all through the universal love of food. In that moment, he glimpsed a pathway beyond his original fears and apprehensions. The potential for personal transformation entwined with his professional pursuits began to crystallize in vibrant hues. Yet, it also raised unsettling questions about the depth he was willing to explore, not just in his business, but within himself. As he strode closer to the finish of his pitch, breathing in the full-bodied essence of newfound conviction, the inevitability of the conversation shifted. The meeting had transformed from interrogation into a dialogue. But now, with vision crystallized, he faced a new crossroad. Was he ready to invite the community to share their stories? And more importantly, was he open to examining his own? As he finished and awaited their response, a new load of uncertainty fell upon him. Would they back him, or would the door to his dream creak shut? Nathaniel stood at the cusp of something great, yet the looming question of commitment danced before him. How deeply was he willing to dive into this unknown world? And with that, he prepared to take the next step that could unearth revelations about who he truly was and what he stood to lose. Nathaniel stood in the aftermath of the investor meeting, the weight of the responses echoing in his mind. Triumph surged through him as he stepped out of the office building, but alongside it, a palpable tension lingered. He had spoken with conviction. He felt the connection made through shared stories and dreams. Yet, the familiar shadow of uncertainty crept in once more. Would his emotional appeal translate into a tangible support for their vision? Days passed, but rather than dissolving, the uncertainty crystallized into determination. Nathaniel poured himself into refining the diner concept, merging creativity with practicality. He collaborated with Mia, sketching ideas about how to integrate community and connection into every aspect of their venture. They envisioned the diner not merely as a restaurant, but as a hub of interaction, a place where cultural narratives intertwined and new legacies emerged. Each brainstorming session unveiled layers of his character he had long buried beneath the weight of expectations. His creativity blossomed, shaped by the necessity of authenticity. Their dinner events, cooking classes, and community collaborations began to take shape, poised to cultivate relationships and foster a sense of belonging. As weeks wore on, Nathaniel received the news he had both yearned for and feared: an investment deal had been secured. With tangible resources at hand, the project took on a life of its own, laughing in the face of all prior rejections. This was no ordinary business venture. This was a renaissance of identity, both for himself and for the community they endeavored to support. The grand opening is in 2 weeks. Mia's excitement radiated, igniting a fire within Nathaniel. Together, they spent countless hours preparing, bringing their vision into a tangible reality. The diner would open its doors not just to serve food, but to serve spirit, a concept far removed from the shackles of their pasts. Finally, the day arrived. Nathaniel stood outside the diner, a gleaming beacon of light amidst the bustling crowd that had gathered. He felt a profound sense of completeness, an anchoring recognition of who he had become. This restaurant was no longer an escape or a means to satisfy familial obligations. It was a celebration of hard-won identity, an embodiment of choice and a commitment to connection. As the doors swung open, laughter and chatter filled the air. Familiar faces from the community intertwined with new patrons, each drawn to the idea that dining could transcend beyond mere consumption. Nathaniel watched with awe as organic conversations blossomed over shared meals. Stories began to weave themselves into the fabric of their diner, each one affirming his vision. Later, as the evening drew to a close, Mia approached him, her eyes bright with pride. "Look at what we created," she exclaimed, gratitude evident in her voice. "This is just the beginning." Nathaniel smiled, the weight of past regrets lifting. "We didn't just create a diner. We created a community," he replied, recognizing the transformation that had blossomed between them, rooted firmly in authenticity. In that moment, standing among a sea of people whose lives now intersected with theirs, Nathaniel felt a profound sense of validation. Here was the reflection of progress, the continuity of community, connection, and courage. This was the legacy he was crafting, not only for himself, but for everyone who entered through those doors. He had conquered the chains of self-doubt, dismantled the burdens imposed by his father's expectations, and emerged into an identity far richer than statistics or profitability could convey. His heart swelled with pride. The diner had not simply been saved. It had flourished into something that could inspire, a living testament to resilience and the power of choosing a path forged through authenticity. Nathaniel felt free. The chains of familial influence that had once shackled him were gone, replaced by a profound sense of individuality and purpose. He had evolved from a man yearning for approval to one who owned his choices, confident, competent, and established. As the night culminated, and the laughter of patrons melded with the warmth of shared experiences, Nathaniel knew that this transformative journey would not just sustain them. It would thrive, resonating echoes of hope and belonging. The diner would pulse with stories, thrive on connections, and forever be a sanctuary for those who entered. Now more than ever, Nathaniel felt ready to face whatever challenges might still come his way. He was no longer Nathaniel Chase, the millionaire's son struggling to find his identity. Instead, he was Nathaniel Chase, the owner of a community-driven diner, a man transformed by courage, transparency, and the power of genuine connection. This was his moment: realization, empowerment, and fulfillment. He had achieved what he set out to do, to reclaim authenticity and build a future, not just for himself, but for the very community that had nurtured him. And now, as you reflect on this transformative journey, remember your own path. Embrace the courage within you to seek change, to forge connections, and to share your story. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.